Please be seated. The court is now back in session. Again, the floor is given to the defense team for accused and pawn to put further questions to the witness.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, witness. I will continue where we left off. I would like you to clarify something. We talked about Susti and the fact that you did say that he contented himself with using summary elements when he drew up lists. Regarding more complete biographical information, do I understand that when prisoners were interrogated by the interrogators, those biographical data were taken?
When the interrogator had the prisoner, he or she would have detailed information of that prisoner so that they could find weak spots, and they use those weak spots against that particular prisoner. As for a summary information, that is a brief biography by Suti was a different one. But the interrogators themselves would have detailed biographies of prisoners.
Quand vous dites les interrogateurs,
when you say that the interrogators took summary biographical data of the prisoners, do you mean in principle that it was the interrogators who asked questions regarding the prisoners' biographies at the beginning of the interrogation sessions?
Interrogators would have separate biographies of prisoners, so they understood the strong and weak points of a particular prisoner, and they should focus their interrogations or questions accordingly.
quand vous dites qu'ils avaient,
when you state that they took their biographies, let me be more specific so that my question should be simplified. I would like document E3/10607, that is a statement before the OCIJ, and it is question 18 and question 19 that are of interest to me. With your leave, Mr. President, may I request that the document be shown to the witness?
Yes, you may proceed.
c'est là où il y a un petit...
You'll find a little yellow orange on the document, and it is against answer number 18.
Et avec l'autorisation de Monsieur...
And with your leave, Mr. President, may I also request that answers 18 and 19 be placed on the screen?
Yes, you may proceed.
Donc voilà ce que vous dites.
So this is what you state when you are questioned on the procedure for collecting confessions and biographies, and this is what you state. May I inform the interpreters that I'll speak in English because this document is not available in French.
Simply speaking, a biography included a name, year of birth, and so on. Most Cambodians at that time could not remember like we can today. Therefore, they took information such as their name and year of birth, place of birth, education, affiliation, occupations, parents' occupations, and siblings' occupation. This information was gathered using the cold interrogation method. Fin de la citation.
End of quote.
Donc, je repose ma question. Est-ce que...
So let me put my question to you again. Do you confirm what you told the co-investigating judges? That is, that the interrogators using the cold method, which you referred to a few days ago, they use that method to obtain a more complete biographical information at the beginning of their interrogations of the prisoners.
Thank you, Mr. President. My statement does not convey any message that the person who the interrogators had details information or biography yet, and the biography shall include names and date of birth, as ordinary people do not remember those details as us. For that reason, they take down date of birth, place of birth, professions, and professions of the parents and the siblings. And that is the principles interrogators used. But they did not have information or biography of those prisoners beforehand. And that is what I meant in this statement. So when they started the interrogation, they started with these series of questions. Ordinary people usually do not remember their dates of birth.
Et cette méthode d'avoir des...
And that method consisting in obtaining biographical data using the cold interrogation method at the beginning of the interrogation sessions. Are you the one who imparted such a method to the interrogators?
I was the one who told them, and I was the one who taught them how to do it. There were documents that I used to teach them, and there's a remaining notebook of some of those instructions.
Un autre point sur lequel...
Another point on which I would like you to provide some clarifications is as follows. On the 20th of June, in answer to a question put to you by my colleague Kopé, Counsel Kopé, and I'll quote what you state precisely, and it was a hearing of the 20th of June, shortly after 15 hours 38 and 18 seconds. The question he put to you was as follows. Did you indeed say that? Was it didn't suffice that a person be accused once? And the question stopped where someone was accused through confessions, and the answer you gave was as follows. In this regard, accusing someone only once did not suffice to arrest someone. The principle handed down by Pol Pot during the 17th April celebrations was that you needed 10 confessions in order to be able to arrest someone, end of quote. Before asking my question, I would like to refer you to other statements you gave before this chamber. This time around, it was on the 3rd of April 2012, document E1/58.1, and it was shortly before 14 hours 02 and 13 seconds. And this was a question put to you. Was there a rule or principle according to which when you were implicated in 3 different confessions, you had more probability of being arrested? There was this rule of 3 accusations, 3 confessions, a rule that existed. Did it actually exist in reality? And your answer was as follows: there was no such rule, end of quote. So today, my question to you is whether there was a rule relating to the number of implications in confessions or not, because the answer you gave in 2012 made me understand that there was no such rule. Can you explain this to the chamber?
Allow me to verify it for one more time. Pol Pot's instruction on the commemoration day of 17 April 77 was merely a theory. It was only a theory. He did not specify how many times a person was implicated before that person was arrested. And the statement that when a person was implicated for 3 times, the person has to be arrested, existed only in theory. And allow me to give you an example in relation to Brother Mok. As 21 prisoners implicated him in 15 confessions. However, he was still the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the People Revolutionary Army, and he remained alive until he was imprisoned with me at the military tribunal. So the number of implications existed only in theory, and the person has to be under surveillance to see what actually happened. And of course, I believe the chamber understands the case related to NAD very well. There was a party's document that existed in around March that Pol Pot said Mian and NAD should not be given any forces, and I did not know from when these 2 individuals were under constant surveillance. And NAD was later transferred to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And in order to send him as an ambassador, and maybe he did not perform that work well, as in the case of Hope, he was subsequently arrested. So the number of 3 or 10 implications in a confession or confessions existed only in theory, and it depended on the activities of those under surveillance when the person has to be arrested or not. And the decisions had to be made by 870, that is in terms of the arrest of the party's cadres. So you could not use these numbers of implications as a measure to arrest them.
Je voudrais passer maintenant à un autre.
I would like to move to another point, and it has to do with armed conflict. You stated that the armed conflict started on the 31st of December 1977. Did I properly understand your testimony?
Et quand je dis conflit armé, je parle...
And when I talked of armed conflict, I'm referring to the armed conflict with Vietnam for the purpose of completeness.
No, it was not an armed conflict. In fact, the Communist Party of Cambodia declared war with the Communist Party of Vietnam. That is on the 31st of December 1978. Yes, that is correct. That was the date that the party announced war, and I cannot recall it clearly whether it was 77 or 78. It was 1978.
Hier, il me semble que vous...
Yesterday, it appears that you mentioned the 31st of December 1977. In any case, do you recall the statements you gave in case 001? I will try to jog your memory otherwise. Do you recall ever hearing someone talk of conflicts on the border between the beginning of 1977 and the end of 1977? Does that ring a bell?
Please hold on. I cannot think whether it is a correct year, that is 1977 or 78. And on the issues of clashes between the combatants of the CPK and the combatants of the June Communist Party, indeed that happened. At that time, Pan Hien actually made a protest to the liaison entity of the CPK regarding the clashes. And at that time, it existed as a form of skirmishes. And that happened on the 15th of May, 1976. Pan Hien spoke about the issue, and then Pol Pot gave instructions that there should be no internal eruption of the issue, and of course it was not worded as an armed conflict but skirmishes along the border. And there was a letter sent to the upper echelon about Vietnamese civilians who came to find firewood in the forest inside Cambodian territory. And before 15 May 1975, says the witness, there were incidences where Vietnamese people entered Cambodian territory, and from the 15th of May 76, there were clashes between the two forces, and gradually it continued, and it continued until the 31st of December 1978. When the CPK declared war. And allow me to finish it at this point.
Alors, je voudrais que vous fassiez...
Very well. I would like you to pay particular attention in answering my questions. You have to answer in light of what you knew at the time. My question to you now is whether you recall hearing a speech by Pol Pot in early 1978, in any case, mostly in April 1978, during which he referred to incidents that occurred between the Army of Democratic Cambodia and that of Vietnam. Does Pawpaw's speech in early 1978 ring a bell to you?
Before I respond to your question, Counsel, and Mr. President, before I respond to that question, allow me to clarify what I said in my last response. My knowledge in that response was similar to the knowledge that I learned within the period of 17 April 1975 to 6 January 79, and there is no need for the Council to remind me of that. And I have no clue about the speech made by Pol Pot. You have to be specific as to which speech that he made.
J'y viens justement.
Mr. President, the document is E3/4604. That speech features in the April 1978 Revolutionary Flag magazine, and the ERN in French is 00520-342. ERN in English 00519832. And in Khmer, the ERN is two paragraphs that are of interest to me, and the ERNs are 000647110 and the following page. And to make sure there are no translation problems, may I ask my colleague Konsamon to read the two paragraphs that are of relevance to me in Khmer, so he'll read it directly in Khmer. With your leave, Mr. President, may I also request that these two paragraphs be placed on the screen, and my team will take care of that.
Yes, you may proceed. Councillor Konsamon, thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to read the relevant excerpt. This year, in particular during November and December, during the first round of their large-scale attacks against us, they used up to 9 divisions of their regular forces to strike at and pierce our eastern border. These 9 divisions, not counting their scattered additional regional, district, and militia units, were their concentrated units. Many of those 9 divisions were their renowned regular force divisions. Of the renowned ones, one was Division 9. The Yun 9th Division was their most renowned in the fight against the Americans. This renowned division came to strike us during 1977. During the month of November and December, they attacked and entered our territory in Svay Rieng, eastern Kampong Cham, Takeo, and Kampot, as you have successively been informed. However, we counterattacked them and broke them. They entered Kampot for 3 days before we attacked and smashed them, and they left. In Takeo, at Gos Andat and Kiribung, they entered for more than a week before we attacked and smashed them, and then they left. In Svay Rieng, they were there for about a month before we attacked and smashed them, and then they left. In eastern Kampong Cham meaning Punyi Krai, Mimut, and Tekjero districts. They entered for about half a month before we attacked them and smashed them to bits, and then they left. This is the end of the excerpt. Thank you, Mr. President.
Monsieur le témoin, vous avez...
Witness, you have heard that extract read out by my colleague Consamon directly in Khmer. Does it refresh your memory? Is this excerpt of Pol Pot's speech remind you of something you may have heard during that period?
Mr. President, I would like the Council to provide me with that copy of the excerpt. President, for purpose of clarity, court officer, could you deliver the document from the Council for the witness examination?
Dans la mesure où ce...
Since the speech was read out to you in Khmer, I suppose that you heard it. There are no translation problems in the text. Does it refresh your memory as regards whether or not you may have heard it?
Thank you, and please allow me to put a question to you. From which Revolution magazine's publications that you take out this excerpt?
Comme je l'ai indiqué tout à l'heure.
As I pointed out a while ago, it is the Revolutionary Flag of April 1978, document E3/4604.
Mais la question c'est...
But the question is as follows: does the extract refresh your memory? If it doesn't refresh your memory, I would also understand.
Allow me to respond briefly to your question. Yes, I heard that it was during the commemoration day of 17 April 1978.
Est-ce que c'est...
Is it during this speech that you heard for the first time about the different clashes between November and December 1977, or even before this speech you had heard about that at S21?
But yeah.
President Council, could you clarify the date in your question? The publication of the Revolutionary magazine was in April, or is it April 1977 or April 1978? And yes, rather 1978 is the chronology of publication.
Indeed, Mr. President, that is the date I mentioned in French in any case, April 1978. So my question remains the same. Witness, did you hear about these clashes in November and December 1977? Did you hear about these clashes for the first time during this speech, or had you heard about them before when you were at S21?
heard about that before. I recall it clearly. That is on the 6th of January 1978, Pol Pot celebrated a ceremony, and he made a speech about building up of the army, and that the sources of the peasants and the workers were the foundation of the army. And that was also the time that Pol Pot says Jews were chased away from Cambodia. And that happened on the 6th of January 78. And then in April 1978, there was another celebration, and there were 5 dignitaries on stage. And actually, I spoke about that once. There were Brother Paul, Noon, Von, Haim, and Ju Chun. The 5 were on stage. And that is my response to you, that I had heard about this matter before.
Un point de...
A point of clarification here, because I believe there might have been a translation issue at the 13 June 2016 hearing, a little bit after 10:55. You were speaking about 196 police officers in Democratic Cambodia, at least according to the French translation. And then a little bit later on, we heard police office. In Khmer, I was told that you were speaking about 196 security centers inside Democratic Cambodia. So can you tell us indeed if in Khmer you were indeed speaking about security centers?
The number 196 was shown to me in the proceedings in case 001. Throughout the nation, there were at least 196 security centers, including S21. This figure was determined by the office of the co-prosecutors, and it was not the figure that I came up with through my research. President Deutsch, please repeat it again. I believe there could be a confusion in terms that you use. You spoke about 196 bodies, including S21. Please use a proper word for the bodies. Are you referring to the security centers or individuals as human beings? Witness. The number of 196 refers to security centers throughout the country, including S21. So there were 195 security centers besides S21.
You have just, in fact, anticipated the following question, which is, where did you obtain this figure from? And you said that it was during the investigation that you became aware of this figure. So the logical question following this is, you, during the DK period, how many security centers were you aware of?
I was aware of a small number of security centers. Security center at Kampong Thom was managed by my younger sibling, and Non was in charge of another security center. Chan was the predecessor of that center. So these were the two security centers which were aware by me, and another office 15 was in charge by Deng.
Do you know this because you had so little information? Was it because of the principle of secrecy, or was it because the security centers were not in contact with each other? Does this explain why you had so little information?
Thank you very much for asking me the matter, and this can allow me to make a clarification again. Security at the district did not respect the security center at the sector level. The secretary of the security center at the district respected the secretary of the district committee, so the instruction orders came from the committee, secretary of the committee at the district level. And as for the security center at this sector level, received the order from the secretary of the sector level. And the same applied to zone.
Excusez-moi.
Please, I apologize. I must interrupt you because apparently there was a problem in the interpretation of what you said. So the interpreters did not understand everything. So please, can you repeat your answer? And I'm asking you once again to please answer on the basis of your knowledge or of the knowledge you had during the DK period.
Thank you. I am talking of what I knew at the time. The security center at the district level respected the secretary of district committee. That was the chain of command. And usually there was no communication, in horizontal level. S21 did not have the authority to be in charge of any other security centers. So S21 received orders and instruction from H70, and the report would be sent as well to H70. This is what I learned at the time.
Juste un instant.
Well, let me move ahead, and I'll return to a translation problem we identified between Khmer and French. But for the moment, I'd like to move ahead. You spoke about your meeting with Pong when you were still at the PJ. Did I understand your testimony well? I'm not asking you to go into the details of your meeting with him, but is it true that it is at the PJ where you saw him for the first time?
Yes, that is true.
Je poursuis.
Let me pick up from an answer that you provided us this morning. You told us that as of the 15th of August 1977, Pong allegedly held functions at S21. So I'd like to know what his duties were exactly.
Quel est son rôle?
What was his role at S21 after 15 August 1977, which is the day you tell us Son Sen went to the battlefront?
This has something to do with interpretation. Nothing is complicated. Brother Nguyen introduced Pang to me at the time. He came to supervise me at S21.
Il est venu.
So he came to supervise you at S21. You are speaking about Pang. And when you say he came to supervise you, what do you mean exactly? What kind of supervision duties did he have over you? What exactly did he do?
I was in charge of work at S21. He conveyed the words from age 70 to me, and when I wanted to report, I had to make the report through Pang. Pang was not the same, but did not have the same character as Lin. He went deep into S21, even through the work where the workstation of the sculptures.
Alors,
Well, let's try to make a distinction here. You are telling us that you would provide him with elements that he would forward to 870, and then he would provide you with elements coming from 870 in turn. That's what I understood from your testimony. And here, this does not appear to be supervision work. It appears that you're describing the role of an intermediary here. So regarding this aspect of Pang's work, was he involved in other aspects, such as confessions, or such as the operations within S21 beyond just transmitting information?
It's not correct to say that he was an intermediary. He had the authority entrusted by the party. He could come to S21, and he came as a spokesperson. If I wanted to send a report, I would send through him. Sometimes, for some work, I had to ask him for the opinion, since he was aware of some tasks, and for other jobs that he did not know how to deal with them, he would ask me to wait until he got the opinion from the upper echelon. Sometimes he would also, give opinion to me or advice to me. And he also made clear when he received direct instruction from the upper echelon, and he would tell me so. So again, he came to S21 as a supervisor.
So I have a bit of trouble understanding you here. I understood at first that after Son Sen's departure, Nunchea became your direct superior, whereas here, I have the impression that it is Peng rather. Peng was the person you saw on a daily basis?
That is your understanding concerning the work of CPK, and you are not familiar with the security work under the CPK. My superior was Nguyen Chi. He would call me to work with him once in every 3 or 4 days. And as for Pong and Lind, they came to S21 at any times they wanted. Sometimes they would come to S21 1 or 2 times a day. It was dependent on them. And the confessions of enemies was sent through Pong. And Tung would come to receive the confession from me and give to Nguyen Chi, and Lin and Pong also received the confessions in order to deliver to Nguyen Chi as well. And my former chief went to the battlefront already, and afterward I had to work with Nguyen Chi, but there were others who came to receive documents.
Donc il venait récupérer.
So he would come pick up the documents and he would take them to his superiors. My question, therefore, is the following. You also spoke about another issue, saying that Pong involved himself in the sculpture workshop. So can you tell us exactly what his role was and what his involvement was?
Everyone knew that Pong and Lin were part of the security guards or defense unit for Pol Pot, the top leader. Everyone was aware of that at S21. In fact, he went to S21 and he was the one who gave Pol Pot portrait to me to give to the painter. And he went to the sculpture to have a look whether the painting resembled to Pol Pot. So he went deep into the workshop to examine the work there.
Donc quand vous parlez.
So when you're speaking about his involvement, you're telling us that he went once or that he went several times?
Comrade Pong went to my house and also went to the sculpture workshop on many occasions. 3 times, 2 or 3 times, he went to the workshop, but not more than 5 times he went to that workshop. Now let me say, not more than 3 times that he went to the workshop. However, he went to my house on a frequent basis.
So he was allowed to move about freely within the S21 compound?
That is true. However, he needed to have me as his companion. Otherwise, he would not walk around freely. Would not have the authority to walk around freely.
And could he attend the interrogations of prisoners?
No, he was not engaged in interrogation of prisoners.
Quand vous remettiez.
So when you would give Pong confessions, were these confessions in a sealed envelope, or he could read the confessions directly before giving them to whomever he had to?
And the envelope used to be sent to A70 was of good quality, and the confession were completely sealed.
Donc je comprends.
So I understand from your answer that he was therefore not allowed to read these confessions unless he would open the envelopes without having the authorization to do so.
That is what I want to say. But he could read some confession that was required by Nguyen Chia for him to read. After the big supervisor or chief read the confession, and he was allowed to read in order to get confirmation from me. That is what he could do. So again, after Uncle Noon read the confessions, Pong, and if Nguyen Chia was not quite sure about some confession, he would ask Pong to get the confession to me for confirmation.
So you were not present when Pong would give the confessions to the people he had to do that. You were not present when that would happen, correct?
Pong gave sealed envelope within which there were confession at the office of A70, and I was at my own office.
Before I continue with Pong, I'd like to return to a translation issue. Mr. President, with your leave, I'd like to provide to the witness an excerpt from the draft transcript of 8 June 2016, a little bit after 9:51 and 15 seconds in the morning. And the witness speaks here about the security centers throughout Cambodia. I'm going to read out what I have in French, but I'd like to check the Khmer version so we can maybe solve this interpretation issue. And I do not know if I have your leave, Mr. President, to display the Khmer version on the screen so that the Khmer speakers may follow this directly. Of course, this is only a draft transcript, but at least it will also allow the interpreters to follow. If you give me your leave, Mr. President.
President, yes, you can do so. However, could you please identify the document number and also EON?
I don't have the index number and I don't have the ERNs because these are only draft transcripts. It's the draft transcript of 8 June 2016. All I can tell you that this is after 9:51 and 15 seconds in the morning. So, witness, I'll let you read this a little bit first.
Ok, alors.
Fine. I'm going to ask for your assistance, witness, for you to read it out afterwards in Khmer for there to be a proper interpretation. In my French version, here you're speaking about the arrests at S21, and you say and this is what I have in French interpreted to English, and I would like you to read it out in Khmer. When the husband was arrested, the wife was also brought to S21. And in all of the security centers throughout the country, when the husband was arrested, the wife was also arrested. End of quote. I was told that in Khmer you did not make this generalization. You did not say that this happened in all security centers. So please, can you read out the answer you provided yesterday to the chamber, and then I will put a question to you.
After the husband was arrested, the wife would also be arrested. So perhaps the role, perhaps S21 had a similar role as other security centers throughout the countries.
Well, I understand here that when you answer this question, you are telling us that this maybe happens in the other security centers. But here you're just supposing this. Is that what I must understand from your answer? In Khmer, you say maybe. Maybe this is what happened in the other security centers, just like what was happening at S21. But I understand from that that you do not know that clearly, that this is only a hypothesis. Did I understand you correctly?
Mr. President, after a husband was arrested, that was the time for the arrest of the wife. This is the party's principle. So no other security implemented differently from this kind of principle. The husband was arrested, then the wife was also arrested. But perhaps there were different cases. For example, Kai Kum Huon was arrested. Dum Sa Ruon was also arrested. However, the oldest child, Kai Kandara, asked the permission to see me, and he survived the regime. The oldest child was working at the east. Kai Kum Huon and Dum Sa Ruon were at the northwest. The husband and wife, had been arrested, but the elder child, was not arrested. The general principle was that the husband and wives would be arrested, were to be arrested.
Vous-même, tout à l'heure, vous avez...
You yourself explained a while ago that S21 was not by vocation supposed to supervise the other security centers, but you said that under democratic Cambodia you knew 2 other security centers out of the 196 security centers identified during your trial. My question to you is as follows. You yourself, can you only talk about what happened exactly the way it happened at S21, but you are unable to talk about what happened at the other security centers? Do you agree with me that during the period of democratic Cambodia you did not know exactly what happened in the other security centers?
In principle, that statement is correct.
J'en reviens à Pang.
I would like us to talk about Pang now. We've referred to what you presented as your work as a supervisor at S21, your work which considered in supervision at S21, and you said that Tung only came to S21 when he was authorized to move about in S21. Was he aware of the principle that you referred to in your testimony, that persons who are arrested had to be smashed?
I believe that he knew about it because that was the general principle of the CPK.
Quand vous dites « je pense qu'il est »,
You say that you believe he was aware of it. Is it because you never discussed the fate of prisoners with Pang? The fate of prisoners at S21 with Pang? The interpreter corrects that previously he meant to say Pang, but the word didn't come out correctly.
That was the universal or general principle of the CPK, that anyone who was arrested has to be smashed. So there would be no sense to speak about the fate of those arrested. Party's line was not something to be discussed whether it was appropriate or not. Whatever was determined by the party, it had to be implemented.
est-ce que vous vous souvenez
Do you recall the date on which Pang was arrested? This morning, you said you were not very sure, that you didn't quite remember. Do you remember more clearly now in what year and in what month Pang was arrested?
If you don't ask me the question, I would even seek the floor from the chamber to speak about the arrest of Pang, since I recall it. One went on the 21st of April 78, and it was not on the day of the commemoration of the party's day of 77, because during that period Pang went with Pol Pot to Korea and China, and on the celebration we celebrated for 3 days, 16, 17, 18, and in fact the material was not yet removed when Brother Noon came. So allow me to say that it happened after the 18th April, and I believe Pang was arrested likely on the 20 or 21st April 78.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez combien, enfin,
Do you recall how many already? Do you recall whether at the beginning of his detention at S21 he was smashed?
Once a person was arrested, interrogated, and if there was no need to keep them, then the person has to be smashed. As in the case of Pang, it seems that there was no need to keep him since his confessions were confusing, so he was smashed.
est-ce que vous vous souvenez à quelle date?
Do you recall on what date he was smashed?
No, I do not recall that.
Je voudrais utiliser un document.
I would like to use a document with the witness and possibly place it on the screen. I don't know, Mr. President, whether you'd like us to go on break now or I can continue. Can I continue?
Yes, you may continue for a few more minutes.
Je vous remercie. Donc, je voudrais.
Thank you. May I request, therefore, that the page, or rather document E3/1596, be placed on the screen. The ERN in French is 007583666. ERN in Khmer 00013354. ERN in English 00753743. And may I also request that the Khmer version be given to the witness with the assistance of the court officer.
Yes, you may proceed.
Vous avez normalement le document sous les yeux.
Witness, you now have the document before you. May I request that it also be placed on the screen? On the first page of this confession, it is indicated as follows: confessions of 010. Do you know what the code 010 refers to, the person it refers to?
The code 010. To my knowledge, I do not recall who it was. Previously, there were designated codes for certain individuals, but I cannot recall them now. I do not recall whose confession it was in relation to the document presented to me. President, thank you. Thank you, witness. It is now appropriate for a short break. We'll take a break now and resume at 3 o'clock. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties during the break time, and have him return to the courtroom at 3 o'clock. The court is now in recess.